Hi everyone, welcome back to Meerkat Musings and my weird and wonderful quirky channel. Hopefully you're enjoying my videos. If not, well, why are you still watching? Go away. But in all seriousness, if you are enjoying them, then great. It means I'm actually doing something right for a change. So anyway, onwards and upwards. This one is about freedom of speech and hate speech and where we sort of draw the line between the two. It was inspired by a conversation I was having on Twitter, and the person I was discussing this with was of the opinion that hate speech, well, not so much that hate speech is free speech, but rather that we have to be very careful with where we draw the line. Albeit their approach to this argument was somewhat confrontational, and there were one or two questions I put to them that they refused to answer because I suspect their motives were a bit disingenuous, shall we say. Now, to me, I think there has to be a line somewhere. I think with the privilege and right to free speech comes the responsibility to use that speech wisely. I don't think that freedom of speech gives us permission to be as offensive as we like, or to be stirring up hatred or inciting violence or stuff like that. You know, it's all well and good to say I support free speech. Does that extend as far as supporting the right of neo-Nazis to march through town chanting various hateful slogans and, you know, advocating harm and violence to those with different ideologies? I would say no, it doesn't. There's a point where you have to draw the line, and it's difficult to determine what that line is. Of course, it's not something I'm qualified to determine by any means, but I do think with free speech does come a responsibility to use that speech wisely, to be smart about it. And therefore, you know, that will put me into disagreement with people who think you should be able to say what you want when you want, without consequence. But the bottom line is, you know, if you want to say, be it face to face, be it YouTube, be it, you know, online through a forum, if you want to put forward ideas and suggestions about, say, you know, doing harm to someone or to a group of people, if you want to advocate oppression and bigotry, racism, homophobia, stuff like that, if you want to say those things, then you've got to be prepared to handle the consequences that come with them. So you need to stop and think. You know, people say, oh, you're punishing me for using my free speech. Well, no, you're being criticised and possibly, you know, being punished by the law for being abusive, for saying or doing things that constitute abusive language and behaviour. Because you don't have the right to go around doing that without consequence. Just because you have free speech doesn't mean that there shouldn't be consequences if you're going to use it for nasty and nefarious reasons. So, yeah, there has to be a line somewhere, I think. As mentioned before, I'm not the one that's qualified to draw that line. But I do think that we have to be mindful that, you know, what we say can hurt other people. And then you get people go, oh, well, you know, don't be a snowflake, don't be this, blah, 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 blah. Well, one person's honey, as it were, is another person's poison. Just because something is not offensive to you doesn't mean that someone else can't be offended by it, and vice versa. So you have to bear these things in mind. You can't, you know, we don't live in a society anymore where people have the carte blanche to be nasty, if you like, nor should people be nasty anyway. At the end of the day, Everyone has a different response to different things, and everyone has different tolerances for different things. And there's no right or wrong answer to these things in a lot of cases. I've sort of digressed a bit here. But yeah, it all comes back to that central idea that if you want freedom of speech, just remember you need to use it wisely. And bear in mind that there can and will be consequences if you're going to be using it unwisely. If you're going to be nasty, if you're going to incite hatred, if you're going to behave in some respects like a bully, then you should expect consequences to that. And you can't go off whining about it if there are consequences. You've made your bed, now you need to lie in it. And that's kind of where I stand on that subject. Yes, I advocate freedom of speech. If you take a look at the websites that I run, I will allow comments through from people who've got massively different perspectives and thoughts on various issues. I've even let through comments from at least one person who has been very hostile. So yes, I massively believe in freedom of speech, but there does have to be a line somewhere. There's only so long you should expect to tolerate being verbally abused or hateful stuff being written about you before you say enough's enough. I've warned you, there were consequences, now you're banned, now you're blocked. Or in extreme cases, we're going to take this further. We're going to go to the authorities and see what they have to say. If you want to say what you want, say what you want. But bear in mind that words and actions have got consequences.